Hey, everybody, it's Laura Eisenhower. I have an awesome guest with me today. I met him at the Disclosure Con conference in Pine Top, Arizona. And that was only like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. His name is Jake Angeli, and Yellowstone Wolf, aka Jake Angeli, is his name. So he likes to say whichever one you prefer. I like Yellowstone Wolf. That's really cool. Anyway, he is a self-initiated shamanic practitioner, an energetic healer, an ordained minister, a public speaker, and published author. He is from Phoenix, Arizona, and has worked in the behavioral health field for over 6 years. He has walked the shamanic path for 20 years and has had numerous paranormal and UFO experiences. He has written several books, influenced hundreds of lives, and spent endless of hours in deep trance states and meditation. He also has defeated dark demonic forces, held sacred ceremonies, cleansed ecosystems, and liberated minds. Thank you so much for joining me, Jake.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, you definitely made a huge impression on me when we met. And it was in regards to something we'll talk about towards the end, which are these really great patches that can facilitate all sorts of amazing things in the body. But first, I just want to get to know you and your work, and you've written a bunch of books. So let me just start off asking you about just when we were talking, you mentioned a few things about like movement of energy based on the same fractal design and things related to like DNA. Can you just kind of like expand upon that and just take us somewhere with all that?
Yes, absolutely. So let's start with the idea that I'm sure most of your audience is awakened to the idea of like the flower of life and the tetrahedron pattern, as well as the sacred spiral, the Fibonacci spiral, the double torus field. All of these things are fractal in nature, which means that they're the same pattern on all sizes and scales. Whether it be an atom, which kind of has the same structure as the solar system, or it be a neuron in our brain has like the same structure as a galaxy. You know, the whole idea is that the human body is a vessel for this divine energy based off of this fractal structure to move through. So human beings and human DNA is almost like a vessel for this information and this energy that moves through the cosmos.
Right. And so obviously there's stuff going on Earth as far as like weaponry is concerned to create distortions with that, correct?
Yes, absolutely. That's what's really interesting is that what we're witnessing is like with the GMO food, for example, or the ELF frequencies, or even the stuff in the meat. What we're witnessing is efforts to alter our DNA to the point where we are not receptive to these higher frequencies of consciousness and light that can come through from these higher realms. And it keeps our minds in what I call the Saturnian box, you know, and it keeps human consciousness within these limits that have been created for us that actually are illusions. And our DNA is being affected. These GMOs literally affect our DNA. You know, pesticides affect our DNA. We're actually amazing organisms because we've been able to fight all this stuff back and still keep on kicking.
Yeah.
But we're also being limited like on an extreme level as to our real potential.
Yeah. Yeah, totally we are. And so talk about the feedback loop of light and information using DNA as antenna. And
yeah. Okay, absolutely. So remember how I was saying everything is based on the same fractal structure, right? The flower of life tetrahedron pattern. Well, that is on all sizes and all scales, from quantum to cosmic. And we as individual beings are basically like beings of ether or electricity. Okay, of the plasma, right? And because we are a conglomeration of all the same forces, all the same laws of physics and stuff that created the universe, we're like a distillation of all that, then it's almost like we're an ocean in a drop and a drop in an ocean. And what we do has a very, very large and profound effect because of this fractal nature to reality. So when we have a thought or an emotion, it's almost like we're putting that light code into the collective. And so God, divine creator, source, whatever you want to call it, hyperdimensional, 13th dimensional consciousness, it gets that signal and it sends it back to you as like, oh, this is the reality you want. You know, even if it's like, this sucks, I don't like this, I don't want this, real, God's like, well, then this sucks, you don't like this, you don't want this.
Right.
You know? So the feedback loop is this exchange of energy that is your DNA is like an antenna for. Okay. When we have a really, really positive emotion, the HeartMath Institute discovered that the high frequency rapid wave function of a high frequency emotion activates antenna on our DNA. And these antenna on our DNA are responsible for sending and receiving light and information. Mm. And the lower the frequency of the wave of emotion, the less DNA are activated. Okay. Now, if we understand that when we have a really, really high frequency, more and more antenna are activated, then that basically means that we are embodying more and more light and information in each and every moment. Okay. So if, like we were saying earlier, the food and all these other things, the pollution in the air and in the water, if these things are lowering our vibration to these low frequency states, the ELFs which are actually low frequency vibratory signals, if these are keeping us suppressed, then what happens when we transcend that? Well, what happens is that we end up tapping into the fractal nature of consciousness in the universe, and we're able to grow our frequency and our consciousness beyond the Saturnian box. Right. And basically become unlimited. And this is the reason why these things have been so heavily suppressed by the Saturnian agenda, by this New World Order or Old World Order agenda, is because human beings are limitless in our potential. And the more we recognize that as individuals, it spreads through like the 100th monkey effect.
Yes.
And that has a cascading effect that cannot be stopped once it's started. Once that first domino gets flicked over it, you know, there's no stopping it.
Where do you feel like we are now? I mean, we're in this window period, which to me feels like it's a lot easier to get a direct connect and be the override frequency to begin to shift what we're seeing on the planet, the different agendas that have been trying to take us down. When you see everything sort of as a whole right now on this earth, where do you feel we are? Because here, you know, there's fires going on in California. There's a lot of disclosure and awakening and people being more privy to this kind of information. But as a whole, where do you feel we are? And I know also, not to put too much in one question, what would be the best advice you can give people to kind of jump over that Saturnian limit? Because I know a lot of it's unconscious for people, conditioning, ancestral patterns, you know, just things that are so heavily,
ingrained.
Yeah.
Like pounded into us.
Yeah. So kind of going with, I guess, the first question, where do you feel we are? And then, yeah, going into maybe a little bit more of the maybe advice. And then I'll go, yeah, there's so much to talk about with you. I know I'm going to have you on again because we don't have as much time as I'd like today. But yeah, so.
Well, where I see us is this. One thing we have to keep in mind is that, for example, where there is a lot of water in one place on the planet, there's another area where there's a desert. Okay, so everything is yin and yang, everything is balanced in one way or another. Okay, so there is a lot of awakening, which basically means that these lower dimensional beings, these Saturnian or agenda, these Saturnian beings, they're going to be trying as much as they can to create as much loosh as they can. Okay, now if we look at how aware California is, if we look at the beautiful aspects to California and how in many areas of California, we're actually talking about like divine and harmonious ecosystems. Okay, if that is being destroyed, well, then that is disharmony. You know what I'm saying? Now, if it was being done by, say, something like a natural force like lightning or something, that's one thing. But these, I think, are human-made. Okay, or maybe even satellite made. Okay, so where I see us at right now is in this place where there's a lot of awakening in these areas, and then there's unconscious energy that is trying to be created in others. And what we as a collective are going through is a collective purging. Okay, we're not just seeing the fires in California. We're also seeing, a couple weeks ago, it was the fires in the Amazon. We're also seeing the stuff that's going on in the Middle East in the way that that's changing radically. So what we have to keep in mind is that because things like the sun's frequencies are constantly changing, because the galaxy's frequency is changing right now, because we're in a galactic cycle, we're in the 13th house, like you were saying in one of your videos, everything is changing. And this influx of information, enlightened information that is in this feedback loop, isn't just something that we experience as individuals. It's something that's going on as a collective for the earth, for the sun, for the galaxy, and for the universe as a whole. So as our galaxy goes through this ascension process as a galactic ascension, there's also this awakening on a solar level and on a planetary level. And what that means is that all of these layers of unconscious energy that have been stacked on top of one another through these dark timelines that have been created for the last several millennia, these things it's almost like the disharmonious echo has to be dominated by the harmonic roar, and the interference pattern of the echo of the old is going to be disrupted and overcome by the harmony of the new. But for us, that may not be as fast of a process as we would like, and there may be a little bit more suffering along the way than we would prefer. But ultimately, if you look into the astrological aspects of all this stuff, we're actually coming into a very, very profound time in 2020.
Yes.
So the way that I look at all this stuff that's going on, whether it be the fires in California or the stuff in the Middle East or the destruction of the Amazon, what we're seeing is a purging. Okay. And in many cases, the people that are responsible for these purgings that are unnatural are just waving a red flag so we can come and get them. Evil is showing itself because the light is so strong at this point. And so it is becoming quite obvious who to trust, who not to, who's guilty and who's innocent.
Right.
As the vibration raises, it'll become easier and easier to do that. And so the advice I can give to people is this. Understand that, like Laura has said before, we are connected to the planets through our chakras, through the energy of our bodies. So your personal individual ascension path is absolutely essential and vital to the structure of the ascension on a planetary, a solar, and a galactic level. Okay? And whenever you experience something that is causing you to experience negative emotions, it's not about suppressing the negative emotions and not feeling them. What it's about is recognizing the negative emotions, almost like an ant biting you on the leg, as opposed to a lion trying to hunt you. And see, okay, this situation is actually a result of these planetary movements and this cosmic cycle and all of the movement of the entire universe moving my energy in a very specific way, almost like the ocean current moving a pebble across the ocean floor. And it's like the pebble trying to fight that current is silly. You're just going to end up in a weird spot. The universe has its way of moving things around. So understanding that sometimes a victory may appear to be a defeat, and understanding that living and dying with every play is no way to win the game. So by embodying patience, by embodying peace, by embodying love, and by embodying the true understanding of what is really going on, we create the light codes in our hearts and in our minds that can be put into the 100th Monkey Collective. And people can use that light code to overcome an obstacle that they too are going through that day at that time. And in this way, all us light workers work together to create the right codes as a collective to ascend more and more each day, purge more and more negative energy, and get rid of these timelines more and more, because we are embodying the harmonics of the universe through choosing to embody our highest self.
Beautifully put. Yeah. Yeah. So I think people are afraid of the negative feelings that are coming up for them. And to me, I mean, just like you said, that's part of the process. And denial doesn't, help anybody. We got to feel it to heal it, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, you're a really profound individual. And I wanted to talk about, your books before we close also, but talk to us about like altered states of consciousness, fasting, abstinence, psychoactive plants, dreams, brushing against death, and all these things that connect us into our multidimensional self. And these are things that you've brought to my attention, to discuss. So whatever part of all that you want to, express or bring some light to.
Well, I think it's important to understand that altered states of consciousness are what life is all about, because sober consciousness or mundane everyday consciousness is but one type, and it is essential for survival, and it is essential to having some sort of a spiritual life, but also exploring these other altered states, like say fasting, because that's you pushing your physical limits, you see, into this altered state where you realize that you are in touch with non-local consciousness, you're in touch with source consciousness, and because you have pushed your physical limits, you have now entered this higher frequency of consciousness.
Right, which is exactly tying into what we are talking about so far. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so things like abstinence allow your aura to be so much more sensitive. Okay, things like fasting allow your aura to be sensitive. Things like psychoactives allow your aura to be sensitive. That's the reason this whole idea of like you want to hang out with the right people in the right place at the right time, the right dose. You don't want to just go taking a bunch of mushrooms or something like that at a concert or something. No. That can go really bad really fast. So it's important to understand that whether it be tattooing, like an ordeal, like what I've gone through, all the pain and the shamanic tattoo process of like the Samoans or of most tribal people, or even the dream state. All of these things are like different petals on the flower of life. And in order to have a full perspective on the flower, you have to explore all the petals. And that's how you gain a multidimensional understanding of reality, because now you're looking at life from all these different angles.
Right.
All these different petals, and you get to see the whole flower. And the more you do that, the more flowers you get to pick, and then eventually you have a bouquet.
Right. So some people might feel not comfortable with the plant medicine thing, and can they still, through just the dream state, or maybe writing down dreams, or pushing the limit of maybe merging the dream world with the reality world, they can achieve that maybe through some of these other things you mentioned, like fasting. So if one maybe does not resonate with some of those choices, can they still access certain flowers without going through a certain initiation, you think? Or
yes, you can. Some people may prefer a seed of life as opposed to a flower. It really all depends on you and your spiritual development. What's really important to keep in mind is that what works for one does not work for all. It is not a one-size-fits-all thing. Spirituality is in no way, shape, or form that way. And I think that's the danger of religion. That's the danger of dogma. That is the danger of ego and stuff like that. So because we have this danger of falling into these patterns of allowing somebody else to do it for us, I think the most important thing for people's spiritual development is to develop your own intuition, learn to recognize when divine creator is speaking with you, have a personal relationship with God. You don't need a guru, you don't need a priest, you don't need a shaman. What you need is to be your own guru, your own priest, your own shaman. You need to find the divine within. and trust that. And the more you trust it, the more it will build. It's almost like working out a muscle. You know, you don't pick up a 100-pound weight and start trying to curl it. You know, you got to start with 25.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I think that most people want to be the bodybuilder without going through all that work. You know, so that's why they go to the bodybuilder and say, well, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, what you have to do is recognize that it's like what Buddha said. Don't believe anything, even if I have said it, if it does not agree with you and your own common sense.
Right.
So I think the way that people can get the most out of any technique, whether it just be meditation or yoga, which also cause altered states, or what have you, fasting, if they don't want to do any of that, what they need to do first and foremost is acknowledge the divine within. Listen to that voice, that intuitive voice, that conscience, that little angel on your shoulder, and listen to it time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. And what ends up happening is you end up creating like a statistical anomaly in space and time, because you've only chosen the positive route or the loving route time and time and time and time again. And it's like opening the right door over and over and over again. Eventually you get to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So if spirituality is looking in that way, like, you know, like what Jesus said about, you know, I'm sorry, John the Baptist said about change your hearts. The Lord says, my ways are not your ways. You know, it's about love. It's about mercy. It's about forgiveness, not just for others, but for the self, and recognizing, well, you know what? I may have made mistakes, but I love myself regardless, and I'm going to choose to embody my best self despite that blunder.
Right. Definitely. It's so important to really encourage people to listen to themselves, because so much of that externalization is the biggest part of how mind control really infects people, you know, and because some people aren't going to be the good guru and the good teacher and the good leader. They're going to take advantage of people giving them their power. Fortunately, there are a lot of real deal ones like yourself. And that's, you know, because it helps a person to become sovereign instead of, you know, be dependent. So talk a little bit about the shamanism aspect of your journey, and just, you know, different ways that you've, you know, come to acknowledge just this within yourself, you know, because I know you've had like a 20-year journey in all of this, you said.
Yes, and I didn't realize what I was on when I started.
So what kind of triggered it? Not to spend too much time on that, but however much you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah.
What triggered the awakening in me was that I had reached a point in my life of being extremely unhappy with myself, because I had developed so much spiritually up until this certain point, and I hadn't acted like it. I hadn't implemented my understanding. I hadn't used my potential for all I was worth. So I hit this point of depression where I was really upset with myself, and I had a lot of pity for myself. I was addicted to cigarettes, to alcohol, to fast food, to soda, to, you know, watching television and consuming propaganda, thinking,
oh my God, you sound like an American.
Yeah, average American. Yeah. You know, so I had a really, and I also had a really rough childhood. So there was many aspects to the direction I was going in my life that I knew were not viable long term, and I was really upset because I realized that I got myself into this mess. There was nothing I could do to get out of it other than to go the other way and go through the hardship. So I came to understand that if I had simply devoted all of the time that I had devoted into walking this path that wasn't good for me, if I had simply devoted all that time and energy into walking the path that was good for me, I wouldn't be in that mess, and I'd actually be in a whole lot better of a place. So I thought, well, you know, recognizing that now is better than continuing to go down this path. So I pretty much turned it around. But in all honesty, what really, really turned it around for me was all of the things that I had gone through throughout my entire life, layering on top of each other, to the point to where I either who I was wasn't going to survive, or who I was going to thrive and beat it. And I think that that's in the case for most spiritual individuals, where they come to realize, like, if they don't do something different, they're not going to make it. So for me, I also had numerous really, really deep, profound spiritual experiences regarding psychoactive plants from not just recently, but also from an early age. It wasn't necessarily the initiation that most people would be given at that age, but I think I was 11 the first time I got high, and it was because, God love him, my dad gave it to me. But the thing is that the Lord was watching after me and gave me such a profound spiritual experience that I was able to see my thoughts. I experienced life as a dream, and there was this burning question in the back of my head of, what is life all about? What is life all about? Like, what is life? Why this life? This thing that just kept going and going and going and would not stop. Even when I was not under the influence, I mean, I was 11 years old. So then eventually got to a point to where I hit such a high frequency state that question got answered. And I was looking around and I felt like a being on an alien world. Everything looked literally alien, and it transformed my life forever. So that was the real, like, push into it when I was young. And then after that, more and more information kept coming. But the thing is, every time I tried to explain it to people, I just seemed like this raving lunatic, because I couldn't explain it very well. And I was like really, really happy and excited. So then what ended up happening is I just shut my mouth about it. And I kept absorbing and absorbing and absorbing. And eventually I realized that I was absorbing information that was transcending words. I was absorbing information because in many cases, as I grew up and after high school, and after my Navy experience, I was in the Navy, and I came home, and I started getting into the ceremonial plants, like the mushroom, the cactus, and things of that nature. And that was when things got kicked into another gear. And like I said, I started to absorb information that was beyond words, because these plants disrupt syntax. So syntax is the way we describe the world to ourselves with words. And so if you're consuming a substance that disrupts that, well, then good luck describing the world to yourself with words. You literally have a chemical that's saying nope. And that's why those things can be really terrifying for some people, but they can also be extremely euphoric and enjoyable for others. And I just dove in head first and had numerous encounters that were less than pleasant, that reshaped my view on everything. And then I began to understand that these things were in fact sacred tools, that these plants were in fact, I'll just say it, inhabited by plant spirits, as the shamans have said for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And these plant spirits relay information, and in a way that is not digestible for the conscious mind, but is so wonderful for the subconscious. And it was when I began to incorporate all of the other aspects, all of these other altered states, fasting, the abstinence, the incorporating my dreams. I meditated a lot. I did a lot of yoga. And because I hit the psychedelic nerve and I got a taste of the mystery, but it wouldn't return reliably every time I went back. So I realized, well, there's got to be more to the spiritual thing. And then when I started to do all those other things, then when I went back to the psychoactive experience, it was there. So what I came to understand is this is the reason why shamans prepared themselves for weeks on end. This is why they changed their diet. This is why they prayed. This is why they woke up at 5 every freaking morning and saluted the sun and did their yoga. You know what I'm saying? They did all these things in preparation to hit this beautiful harmonic nerve on this very specific and special day at this very specific and special place on the planet, to embody this divine energy Now, as I said before, the Earth it has a feedback loop of light and information that creates its body, just like human beings do. And that energy has to move through the space and time and to and through the Earth in some way, shape, or form at specific locations. And that is in many cases where these shamans or these sages are doing these experiences at these very specific times, so that they can embody the most amount of light and information, or the most knowledge that transcends words as humanly possible.
Right.
The long answer to a short question.
That was great. That was great. So let's talk about, okay, you talk about how the system offers two sides of planetary timelines. And, okay, so we have like a choice then. And I guess the challenge is to be able to jump over the hurdles that would want to keep us on a non-positive, timeline. So talk a little bit about timelines, because I know we're kind of like in the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that's heightening in 2020, which to me feels like it's the peaking of the timeline wars. But then we have to win the war within ourselves. So talk to me about timelines, because, and how we're being offered, these choices. And I mean, and we kind of talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but maybe also how that ties into the planets, and how the planets, in the internal and external matrix is designed, for our growth and evolution, even though we're up against, timeline choices, right?
Right. Okay. So I actually got this from listening to you, so thank you. The idea that each planet has two sides or two aspects to its consciousness. So Mars, for example, is that warfare, domination, control, or dominance thing, the male patriarch thing. But it also has this other side that is like devoted and strong and valiant and courageous and all these other things, right? Mm-hmm. And we as individuals have to understand that all the planets have those dual aspects. And when we as individuals are balanced in our chakras, when we as individuals are balanced in our auric field, what we are doing is we are embodying the highest frequency of all of those planets. And by embodying the highest frequency of all of those planetary frequencies, what we're doing is we are choosing a timeline where all of those frequencies are in harmony. And in that timeline, there is harmony amongst everything.
Yeah.
Because everything is in harmony within.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, so when we as individuals have like, I listened to your talk about RETs controlling the world, your most recent video, and you were saying something about how human beings have basically been forced into these lower dimensional timelines, to the point to where there's actually been like false timelines that have been created, or artificial timelines that have been created that aren't with organic life, right? And this is essentially the matrix that we're talking about here, is this artificial matrix that is this artificial timeline that has been created through these artificial apocalyptic scenarios that were created to create the illusion of the destruction of organic life and an apocalypse. That way our minds can be controlled and we can be used like batteries, right? So because of the current ascension energies and all this stuff that we're going through, we're in the 13th house, all of this divine energy is coming through. What is happening is that the other side of the cup is getting filled. The negative Saturnian matrix has poured as much as it possibly can into the side of negativity, and it's running over. You know what I'm saying? So divine creator is like, well, for the sake of balance, for the sake of actually maintaining the integrity of the entire universe, we have to fill this cup. And so now the love and the light cup is getting full to tip the scales. And if we understand that everything is balanced in the universe, then we have to keep in mind that because there's been so much consciousness suppression on the planet, because people have been like suppressed and in this Saturnian box for so long, there's been pressure building and building and building to the point to where there has to be a counter to that suppression, which is mass awakening.
And then it's like we have that polarity integrated instead of being in this duality of the shadow, the light, the shadow, the light, right? Do you feel?
Right, exactly. There's a balance. And because the thing is that if we have too much light, then there's not enough shadow. And I'm not for the stuff that the shadow side does. But what I think people don't understand is that what we've seen is the shadow side run amok. We've seen the shadow side just gone crazy. And
Right.
if we see the mother side just gone crazy, then that's no good either.
Right. Well,
You know?
ultimately, yeah, it's our own unconsciousness, which is the shadow. So if we allow these outer events that feel negative, like a negative timeline, to bring us into just the inner work that you're talking about, so we can hear our truth, so we can hear our own divinity, and then we can work with the light and dark, almost like higher consciousness and the womb, the dark that births, instead of, you know what I mean? That's kind of what you're helping me to see more clearly as we talk. I mean, I am aware of that, but I feel like we just speak such a similar language. I'm like,
we do. And that's why when I was at Disclosure Con, I was like, I have to talk to this woman. Well, this is what's really cool, is that if we change this notion of positive, negative, evil, good to conscious energy and unconscious energy, and we understand that what all of creation is about is the movement of unconscious energy to conscious energy. It is about and then the cycling of this conscious energy back through a slight state of unconsciousness or death and rebirth, and coming into a level of consciousness again. And then, one of the biggest secrets of Christ and of many of the ancient sages is reincarnation. And this notion that if you live a good life, if you live a life of love where you spread peace, where you spread happiness, where you spread joy, then you will have a positive afterlife experience, and you will remember when you come back through. Now, this whole thing about like this false light thing that I've heard a lot of people talking about, where like you pass on and they throw like a net over you and then they throw you back in, and your response was, well, look, until you get the lessons, you're always going to be taken back. And if we understand the whole idea of the ancient Egyptian understanding of putting the heart on the scales, and does the heart weigh as much as the feather type of thing, what that is, and this is really big here, what that is your heart so loving and light that it's lighter than a feather? And if it is, you go into the next realm, you go into the next dimension of light and love, and you do so consciously, which means that you can come back into physical existence and accumulate more understanding in physical existence that you can take back with you through this literally cosmic conscious feedback loop. So essentially what you do is you end up embodying a divine being of consciousness on like a cosmic level, and you cycle that through again and again, growing each and every time, and eventually you become, instead of just a universal being, you become a multiversal being. And then you become a being of a multiversal being of multiverses. And this process just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, I mean, people really, we all have to remember we're here for soul development. Whatever we see on the world stage, I feel just should trigger some kind of growth period for us, instead of feeling, constantly helpless or at the mercy of, what we see in the outer. It just really helps us to know what we need to work on within, right?
Yes, and I think it's most important for everybody to understand that they vote with their money. That this notion that we vote every 4 years is absolutely asinine. I mean, granted, yeah, we vote every 4 years, but we vote every single day with our money.
You mean like what we support in the world?
Yes, well, and if you support companies like Monsanto,
yeah,
because you're buying Chef Boyardee, or because you want to eat tater tots that come from the store and have already been made and yada, 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 well, I'm telling you, there's people that want to make money off of you. There's people that want you to be stupid. There's people that want you to be controllable. And they put stuff in the food, and then they made the food cheaper than real organic food so that they could corner the food market and distort populations and control minds.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's, if we're feeding that's an energetic, that's feeding something that's destructive, because money is energy, really. So,
and like Gandhi said, if you participate in an evil system, you are contributing to its evil.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, people really do need to realize that we enable the dark agendas if we feed it, if we stay aligned with it, if we have some kind of like agreement with it. I mean, we can't get off the grid just yet, but what are we supporting? What are we feeding every day? What are we feeding ourselves? And yeah, I totally agree about that vote thing. Gosh, I definitely want to have you, you know, back on, because there's so much more I want to ask you, but just in the sake of priority, before we move on to you telling us about the patches, what do you want to share that I haven't brought up yet that is really kind of like jumping out as, oh, you know, I really want to cover this particular, you know, topic, and she hasn't brought it up yet, or something like that, you know?
Sure. There are certain instincts in human beings that have been being used for profit, because essentially human attention has become monetized. The only way that anybody can make money or make a sale is if you have somebody's attention. So because human attention has been monetized, our attention span has been narrowed considerably. And this is a lot of the reason why people don't meditate, okay? So meditation is essentially the expansion of the attention span to the point to where you can expand your awareness and your attention to understanding and experiencing the universe. So as our attention span has been whittled down by this type of lifestyle, we have become more and more ignorant of what is happening in the world. And we have felt less and less and less of the damage that is being done. To quote Terence McKenna, if we could but feel what we were doing to the world, we would stop. And I think that when we begin to understand that if I am my heart beating, my eyes seeing, my foot walking, then I am also the sun shining. I am also the trees growing. I am a transcendent being. I'm a being of frequency that is occupying a physical body. This is hardware for my consciousness software. And if we as human beings allow these instincts that have been programmed into us for survival to be stimulated and continue to be stimulated for the sake of profit, then our behavior will always be easily manipulatable. So we have to become conscious of these subliminal messages, of these subliminal drugs that are being put in our food or in our water. We have to become more and more conscious of ourselves and our relationship to the divine and all of reality, and the understanding that no, despite what you've been told and the lies you've believed, what you do does actually make a very, very large difference. And if you just sit on the couch and watch TV and eat Cheetos and drink soda and go to the fast food joint and, you know, play games on your cell phone, then you're ostrich with your head in the sand. And I'm going to tell you right now, an ostrich with their head in the sand makes great prey for a predator. And there's all sorts of financial predators, there's all sorts of psychic predators and energetic predators that would love to exploit all these ostriches with their head in the sand. So if you don't want to be prey, you got to get your head out of the sand. You have to look around you and realize that you actually are the center of the solutions to the world's issues. That you vote with your money, you vote with your thinking, you vote with the way that you choose to feel on a daily basis, because whether or not you know it, your thoughts and your emotions are being poured into the collective consciousness of humanity. And if you don't take responsibility for those thoughts and those emotions, if you don't take responsibility for what you're eating, you don't take responsibility for what you're watching, then somebody else will. If you don't have a plan, you become a part of somebody else's plan, to quote Terence McKenna, who was actually quoting the mushroom, actually. He said that was something the mushroom told him. So that ultimately is the point. And this final thing, the reason all this has been put up is because we are divine and extremely powerful individuals. We are beings of infinity with infinite creative potential, the ability to create massive amounts of innovation and change and transformation on a spiritual and a collective level. And the moment that you, dear listener and viewer, take full responsibility, not just partial, but full responsibility, is the moment you will watch your life transform all around you. in ways that you did not even imagine were possible, but are only possible because you have heightened your frequency to a new level where you're in literally like a new universe or a new timeline where things are better.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we're not at the mercy of what a negative timeline. No matter what we see in the news, our creative energy is always, voting for the timeline we want to be on, and authenticity is everything. And you are so authentic, and it's so awesome to talk to you. So one of the things, and I will, I'd love to do this again if you're open. One of the things that struck me when I met you is you were talking about these patches, and I know I've got a lot of clients who are dealing with health stuff. I've been having, a lot of clients, with migraines too. I don't know if any of those patches might address that, but I wanted to give a shout out to some of my clients who wanted me to ask. What are these patches? How can we order it? And what is your website? And can you give us a little bit about the books you put out there? So just because I just jumbled all that into one question, let's start with some info about you, your website, if you have one, some of the books that are out there so that people can find more of you. And then tell us a little bit about these patches. Okay.
The website is starseedacademy.space. I'm also on YouTube. You can find me on Starseed Academy channel. That's 4 different words. Starseed meaning 2 words. Academy channel. I'm the picture is of like a cosmic dude like slamming a hammer on an anvil. My books. Well, the website is where you can get the patches from. I'll just throw that out there. You can it's right on the website, right on the first page. You just scroll down a little bit, and there's like a picture of the patches and a little link, a little button you can press, and you can go right to my website to get the patches. I also have courses, what I call star knowledge packages.
Wait, this is all on the website called what again?
Starseedacademy.space.
Okay, so keep going. So the link to the patches is there, and then
then I also have courses. One's called Divine Clockwork course that basically explains how quantum mechanics and celestial mechanics coincide and work together, and how you can basically use the fractal structure of reality to get to the most positive timeline. And then there's Spiritual Self-Defense course, where I talk about, all the chemicals that are in the food and the water and the air, and the solutions for all of these things, as well as the energy frequencies like the ELFs and stuff like that, how you can arm against those things, as well as how you can arm yourself against things like energy vampires, stuff like that, spiritual self-defense. And then there's Warrior Shaman. That course is basically how to get to the next level after you've understood the mechanics of the universe, after you've understood how to defend yourself. You get to this next level where you're like, okay, I'm ready to go out in the world. I'm ready to go out into the wilderness of the imagination. And all the things you need to learn and to understand along that shamanic path, because you will be tested, there will be obstacles, there will be hardships, and there's certain ways of dealing with it and navigating it. Very similar to, the way that ancient people used to navigate the nighttime by using the stars. This Warrior Shaman course is meant to be like a navigation tool for the dark night of the soul. Then there's what I'm going to be coming out with very soon is something called the Full Disclosure course, where I talk about government conspiracies, I talk about aliens, I talk about UFOs, I talk about like the pizza fence stuff, I talk about all that stuff. I also get into shamanism and how all of this stuff intertwines, because to bring it all around here, when it comes to this Saturnian matrix, when it comes to this stuff and this understanding about DNA and these alternate timelines, what we're talking about is that our civilization has been hijacked by evil shaman. They've been hijacked by like evil witches or evil sorcerers of sorts.
They completely understand the occult, the way the planetary bodies work, everything.
And energy and these cycles of energy and the fractal nature of reality and these timelines, they understand all that stuff.
They manipulate sacred geometries to throw off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they distort everything. These archons are not able to create anything. They're only able to distort what is already there.
Right. Imitate and distort.
Exactly. So how that factors into the books now is I actually wrote a fiction called Will and Power Inside the Living Library that is about this gentleman named Will who goes on this journey to the forests of northern Arizona, and he runs into a divine spiritual being that I'm not going to give away exactly what it is, because I want there to be a surprise to it. But a lot of the shamanic lessons that I've learned, and a lot of the things about history that I've learned in my research, I was able to tell the truth through fiction. I was able to speak facts through lies, in that sense, there's this saying I heard, I think it was in V for Vendetta, artists use lies to tell the truth, while politicians use lies to cover the truth up. So I did what I could to be an artist using lies to tell the truth in that story. And that is seriously, it's one of my favorite stories ever, and I wrote it. So it was one of those things where it's like, I've never heard or seen anything like this. I want to see something like this, so I'm going to make it. And so you can actually find the first half of that on audio on my Starseed Academy channel YouTube page. You just have to click on my playlists, and you can find the Will and Power playlist. I've also wrote another book I have called From Mouth to Magic that has yet to be published. It talks about all of the really crazy and intense, shall we say, inner journeys I've been through my psychoactive experiences and my trance states and stuff like that. And I'm also working on one right now that is called God is Real, a Beautiful Body of Knowledge. And that is going to basically make the case for that God is real. And I can explain how God is real through the laws of physics, through sacred geometry, through the way that energy works, through the understanding of DNA, and yada, yada, yada. So bringing that all back to the patches, because it actually all does intertwine, as funny as that is. So it's really awesome we can wrap up with the patches. Okay, so in ancient China, they understood that we have numerous chakras, the 7 main chakras, right? But they also understood that there are also lots of little chakras that they call dantians, or acupuncture points, okay? And all of these acupuncture points are almost like the electrical circuitry of the body, all right? And these acupuncture points are actually electromagnetically charged water beads. Now, our body is made up of 70% water, if not a little more. So because we have an electromagnetic field around our body, this electromagnetic field ends up creating a bunch of water beads that string all the way, say, from this pot here all the way up to your lung, okay? And it sends a signal from here to your lung, okay? And for example, this here is for your head, okay? And there's a string of electromagnetically charged water beads that go from there all the way up to your head. That's why if you have a headache and you squeeze this, it's like, ow. It's because what's happened is these beads, instead of being a line, they've become a bunch and like a knot. And so when you do this, you're working out that energy, okay? So when they put like a needle in there, they're basically getting rid of that energy that's all clogged up and knotted up, and they put it back into homeostasis. So this signal that is being moved throughout the body, throughout the circuitry of the body, is chi. The chi is that energy that is moving through the universe based off of the same fractal design, moving through your body and into the earth to be put into the Akashic records of truth. So if that flow is disrupted, then what ends up happening is that area of the body ends up becoming like a dimension that doesn't get as much light or energy. Because it doesn't get much light or energy, it ends up having the potential for dis-ease. So the frequency of that area can become out of tune or inharmonious. And because it can become inharmonious, it can end up really becoming inharmonious, and then you can get diseases, and that can spread. Okay, so it's important to understand that disharmony in one area of the body will end up creating disharmony in other areas if it's left unchecked. Okay?
Yeah, so, like meridians of the teeth too. The teeth are really powerful.
Yes, well, I mean, it's all a fractal. Human beings are a fractal. We have all the chakras and the organ spots in our ears, in our hands, and our feet. Our teeth and our bone structure. Saturn and all these things. You know what you're talking about. So, what these patches do then is okay. You know how the sun tells our cells to produce vitamin D based on the sunlight signal, right? Mm-hmm. So because the sun tells our cells to produce vitamin D, it's because of the frequency of the sunlight that tells our cell, do this thing. So it's important to understand that there's all sorts of other chemicals that our cells can produce, not just vitamin D, that if we understood the right frequency, then we could tell our cells to produce these chemicals. For example, glutathione is a chemical produced by the cell that is like the cell's natural detox chemical. Now, normally when people say, well, I drink, green tea, or I eat blueberries because it's got lots of antioxidants, that's good. Do that. That's good. But just understand that for every antioxidant that you have in your body, it gets rid of one free radical. But for every glutathione molecule you have that's produced by your cell, you get rid of 2,000 to 3,000 free radicals. Okay? So if we understand that this is the power and the potential of glutathione, then how do we get this signal that tells the cell to produce glutathione to all of the cells in the body? Well, the answer is this circuitry in the body. The answer is the electromagnetic frequency and the electromagnetic field of the body. And there's certain acupuncture points on the body that send signals to the entire circuitry system, to the entire hemisphere of the system. So what has happened is that these life wave patches, that's LIFEWAVE, life wave, these life wave patches are essentially numerous different versions of frequencies that tell your cells to produce different molecules or to do different things. For example, there's also a patch that reverses the oxidation process of your cells, which basically means that it reverses the aging process. Because the only reason we age is because our cells oxidize due to the telomeres and all that decaying and yada, yada, yada. So if we can figure out a frequency that reverses the oxidation process, then we can literally change our DNA and our physical body to be younger on a cellular level than our actual age. Because our biological age and our chronological age, or the age of how many years we've lived, it isn't necessarily the same thing. Some people can have a 45-year-old body as far as like how long they've been around, but their cells are more like 43 or 44, okay? Or maybe even something like 33, okay? All depending on how well they've taken care of their body. Or they can be 45, and because they've abused their body so much, they can end up having something like a 65-year-old body. And what these patches do is these patches are like software for the hardware that is the body. And because these patches are the software for the hardware of the body, you can use them strategically in conjunction with another to literally purge all of your organs of, say, free radicals. You can literally repair your DNA. You can literally reverse the oxidation in your body. You can literally get more energy. There's also a patch that allows you to create stem cells, that causes the cells of your body to create stem cells, or the chemicals that are the precursor for stem cells. And if you use all of these things in conjunction with another, you can transform your body from the inside out. And the only reason why I'm such a vehement believer in this, and I told you this story at Disclosure Con, and I know we're coming up on our time, right? So I kind of have to wrap things up. Okay. I didn't speak with my dad for about 4 months because he was an alcoholic. He drank and smoked all his life, and he was not kind to me. And he had lots of deep wrinkles in his face from smoking and drinking. He had a big old beer belly. He had lots of red blood vessels in his chest that were all popped. Because he used to tan a lot, he had like blotches in on his body that weren't tan. He was not a healthy man. And the whites in his eyes were turning yellow. The gray, I mean, his brown eyes were starting to turn gray. And he got diagnosed with cancer, decided that getting cut open with a knife or doing radiation was not the method of healing for him. He was going to stop drinking. He was going to limit his smoking. He was going to change his diet. He was going to use these patches. So he used these patches for about 4 months. And I didn't see him, like I said, for those 4 months. And he used them every day, and he drank lots of water because these patches don't work unless you have water in your system. You have to be hydrated for the electrical signal to be sent. And when I saw him open the door, he looked like an entirely different man. And I mean that in every way, shape, and form. All of his skin was one color, and it was all baby smooth. His blood vessels the blood vessels in his chest were gone. The wrinkles in his face were like seriously a third, if not 2/3, like reduced. His beer belly had shrunk considerably. And the whites in his eyes became more white. He had more brown in his eyes. And I was just completely blown away, to the point where I asked him, like, what are you doing? You know, how did you do this? And he explained that it was these patches and using them in conjunction with one another for the past several months. And the best part is, you don't have to keep using the patches to get this result. You only have to use the patches for a short amount of time, and then you will get these types of results. Now, if you want to keep getting these results, then you keep using the patches. But to wrap it all up, my dad went and got his blood work done after doing the patches for 4 months, and they tested his blood work, and it went from like a 5 point something to like a 3.8. And they wouldn't have even tested his blood before if it came back as a 3.8. So he believes that it cured him of his cancer too.
Dang. So, okay, so that information's on your website, and that will be in the description of this video so that everybody can find it. And just, you know, because people might just feel a little bit lost about how to do it. When they order it, is there really good instructions?
Oh yeah, of course.
A lot of literature absolutely. That we can all look through to make sure we get the right stuff and know how to use it, where to put it.
Yeah, sure it comes with little booklets. It comes with little booklets, and there's different packages that you can buy. It is a network marketing thing. So if you get into the network marketing business aspect of it, the patches are cheaper. But you don't have to in order to order the patches.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to be a distributor.
Yeah, it's if you want to be a distributor. If not, you can still buy them regardless. If you're really interested in the business aspect, just get in contact with me, Starseed Academy 777@gmail.com, and we'll just go from there.
Wow, you're amazing. This is just really awesome. And the patches must help with things like migraines, right? I've got a few clients that are...
Oh, and pain. Yeah, they have pain patches too. They have pain patches that like help people to reduce their pain, to get rid of headaches, to get rid of migraines. They also have stuff to get rid of, to help people with their sleeping. They have stuff to help people with like eating disorders and with addictions. They have patches that can reverse the frequency on your cell phone. That's like that like, you know, sends out negative ELF frequencies. They got all sorts of stuff. It's absolutely incredible. Like I said, it's software for the hardware of the body. And it is the next level of healing and preventative health.
I'm so excited about this, and I look forward to connecting with you again. It's so amazing to hear your wisdom, and just knowing that you've seen firsthand too what these patches can do is pretty incredible too. And just these courses sound just unbelievable. I mean, you are just a huge blessing and a great resource to humanity, and just so grateful that we had a chance to really talk and get to know each other more. So I will put all that info, like I said, in the description, and hopefully we can do this again. I hope you'll do this again with me.
Oh yeah, whenever.
Awesome. And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in, and you will be able to figure this out. If you're looking for, you know, maybe a career change, this would be a great product to promote. But of course, give it a shot. You know, we all have these ascension symptoms, and definitely a lot of assaults that we want to counteract. And it sounds amazing, and it's easy. You know, it's not pills you have to swallow, which is so, you know, huge. And I know they work. I've used, you know, patches before. Not quite to the level that these sound like, and I was pretty impressed.
You just let you know, they're like the size of a quarter. They're not very big. You know, they and the cool part is that you don't necessarily have to stick them on your skin. You can put them on your clothes. They are activated by the electromagnetic frequency of the body. So as long as they're within 3 inches of your body, they will work.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, if I put your email in the description, are you comfortable with that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
Great. Wonderful.
That's why I gave it out.
Yeah. Totally. Gosh, it's so hard to get off the line with you, but thank you so much.
I know, and thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, take care. Bye, everybody.
Namaste.
Okay.